Live from Alachua, Florida, I'm Amrita Kaylee.
And I'm Raman Reti. Welcome to Nectar Talks, from the heart of New Raman Reti, the largest Hare Krishna community in North America and the home of thousands of Bhakti Yoga practitioners.
In our ongoing interviews, we dig deep into our search for loving connections with Krishna and each other.
With you, we hope to uncover the real-life stories and inner journeys of our vibrant community of friends and special guests.
Like bees searching for nectar, we seek to extract pearls of wisdom from how they live their lives and the lessons they can impart to us and our listeners.
If you're seeking nectar, look no further.
All right, let's get started. Hare Krishna, everybody, and welcome to Nectar Talks Live. Happy New Year. Before we begin, we want to invite you to our new Facebook page. It's called Nectar Talks Live. And we're actually streaming live from there now and will be for all of our upcoming shows. You can also find our archived videos there and any announcements that we have for our upcoming interviews.
In this show, we have two special guests who not only are a joy to spend time with and have very, very interesting lives, but they have also been instrumental in developing what could be the number one reason why Krishna devotees from around the world moved to the New Raman Reti community in this small town called Alachua. Visvambara and Vrinda have been married for 27 years. They have 3 grown children. And when they moved to the community in 1998, they both became actively involved in the early developments of the local school, which is Bhaktivedanta Academy. In 2007, Visvambara became head of school, and Vrinda joined him as the lead early childhood teacher. Thanks to their efforts and their team, the Bhaktivedanta Academy is now a highly rated IB school, which offers a quality and holistic education for children. Vrinda and Visvambara, we want to hear more about all of this from you directly. Welcome to Nectar Talks. How are you?
Woohoo! Good, thanks for having us.
Hare Krishna, so nice to see you both.
Hare Krishna.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we're really excited to spend some time with you this evening. And Amrita, it's good to see you again too.
You too, Amrita Kaylee, up in Jacksonville.
So, Prabhus, we are really eager to hear about your personal journeys in Krishna consciousness, your backgrounds, your relationship with each other as a couple and raising a family. We're going to do that a little bit later in the show. And for right now, we will highlight your work at BANA, at the Bhaktivedanta Academy, for just a little while. So my first question to you is, was a career in education always something that you had in mind as individuals? Or, I mean, this is a huge service that you've both taken on. Did it come about more unexpectedly or later in life? How did it develop?
You want to go first?
Sure. Well, as I was always around children as a teen, I babysat, as some teens are often found to do, for a part-time job. And when I was in college, I worked at a local preschool. And then fast forward some years later, when we were married a few years into our marriage, I began my training as a Montessori teacher, and I worked at a school in California and achieved my certification at that time. We then had a change in life and we moved to Alachua, as so many people do. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a number of years. And then when our youngest was 3 years old, I decided to get back into it. And that's when I joined Bhaktivedanta Academy and have been there ever since. So it's been a thread in my life throughout. I've always loved children. I love being around children. They're really special.
Awesome. And Visvambara, could you tell us a little bit about the program and its methods and which grades are covered?
Wait, I want to hear about Visvambara. I want to hear if this was always on his radar.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
See, that's why there's two of us.
Yeah. And so the simple answer to that question is no. I had no idea I would ever be doing this, and it really came about through just seeing a need, and that's kind of been a common thread for me a little bit in devotional service. And so, in this instance, there was a particular need. There was some inspiration there to try to do something unique and special, and decided to take that on. But yeah, if you had asked me where we're way back when, even just in 2000, I had no idea I'd ever be in this place.
Do you want to tell them what
Yeah.
your career aspirations were?
It's okay. I'm answering the simple question, but
Oh yeah,
I think now I'm
definitely
ready
tell us.
to.
What else could you have seen yourself doing?
I mean, I wanted to be a pilot, just like you, Rita, but that
right.
wasn't.
I
That
remember
was
that.
not in the cards. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
so no, that is not what I ended up with. So,
But it's
here we are.
it's so, yeah, I mean, it's so admirable that you saw a need, and you took that on, and you actually made it your career. So that's really a beautiful thing. So back to me jumping ahead, would you share a little bit about the methods at the Bhaktivedanta Academy? What sets it apart from perhaps a more traditional public school system, and what are some of the grades covered and the accreditation system and all of that?
Sure. If it's okay with you, I'll kind of cover a little bit of the history of the school, and it kind of leads into kind of where we are today.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And so the thing that's interesting with Bhaktivedanta Academy, and someone I have to absolutely give credit to for where we are today, is Mother Nautica Chandrika. When we first came into the community here in 98, there was some movement towards getting the Alachua Learning Academy, or the ALA at that point, was being set up, and the charter was being written, and there was a lot of movement towards getting that established. And so when that happened, it actually was a great thing. I mean, now there was funding, there was this great school to be established. A lot of devotees were involved with that. And at the same time, Nautica Chandrika really felt the need to have a spiritually based educational alternative still remain at the heart of New Raman Reti, to have that as an option, at least for the families that could do that. And so that's actually where we became involved. We moved here specifically to put our children in school. And like so many of the other families that come here, that was what drove us here to the community. And
right.
So our eldest son, who was 5 years old at the time, he had the real blessing of being one of Nautica Chandrika's students in her first kindergarten class, and remained with her for many, many years. And so that was the beginning of what you see today with Bhakti Academy. It was her commitment, her heart for having a spiritually based but quality education available to families and to their children. And so we've developed that over the years. Back then, it was kind of a one room schoolhouse situation. We had about 16 students, and now we've developed it over the years with a tremendous team of dedicated teachers to close to 100 students. And
wow.
And we've now gone pre-K, starting with our 3-year-olds, and all the way up through high school with our 10th graders. So they move on to dual enrollment most typically from there. And so it's been an evolving and organic growth of the school over the years, as more people have become involved, invested in the development of the school, and then we've grown it. And so we're a Montessori school at the pre-K through elementary levels. And then we transition students into the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program that's headed up by Jai Shirade. And that's the transition point for students who are now getting prepared to go on to dual enrollment. And at this point, we've had 3 or 4 graduating classes. Four graduating classes coming out of there. And it's wonderful to see. I mean, we're really blessed to be in this situation where, we had a graduating class last year that many of those students joined Vrinda's class when they were 3 years old. and now have graduated out at 10th graders. And so it's amazing. It's really amazing.
It's fantastic. What does your graduation ceremony look like?
It's fun. Jai Shirade and Sham do an incredible job of just creating the celebration of this culmination of many years of being with us. It's very heartfelt, and it's a, you know, it's what you would expect in many ways in a traditional graduation that has a real spiritual life to it.
Nice.
That really brings it alive, and really it's for those that have attended it, that just keep commenting how much they just see the love that's just there in that ceremony.
That's wonderful.
And that's something that I wanted to ask you about, because the program is such a beautiful synthesis of a spiritually nurturing environment and an educationally challenging environment. And what are, like, when you envision your students graduating, or you see them graduating, what are your hopes for them? That what do they take away from this experience internally and as they go out into the world?
Yeah. Do you have memorized that credo?
I do not, but I can paraphrase it.
Well, I'll speak and then you can
Sure.
speak.
Sure.
Well, we would like for them to know themselves. We would like them to know the world. We would like them to know their spiritual identity and where they're coming from, and to feel confident and be able to emerge as leaders, ready to serve their community, their family, and the world, basically. So, you know, no small task.
It's every devotee parent's dream is what it is.
You got it all covered there.
Why not shoot for the stars, right?
That's right.
And really one of the guiding elements of this is just really preparing our students to just be in the world, and no matter what direction they decide to choose in life, that they're prepared for it, and then they have that spiritual foundation that carries them no matter what they choose to do in life, and that they're not limited in what they want to do. And so a lot of work goes into that, with, you know, starting with our 3-year-olds and just simple, you know, social emotional development, and then continuing on with academics, and then that spiritual foundation, really kind of brick by brick kind of build things up as we go.
What are some of the special topics offered at the Bhaktivedanta Academy that kind of fulfill these goals that you're describing? You know, like particular classes. Like, I know you have like, what are some of the names of the classes that you may not find in a different kind of school, or concepts?
Well, one thing I'll say, just kind of before we get into the specifics with the classes, I'll say one of the overriding things is that we're a holistic educational program. So it's not only the academics, and frankly, it's not even just the spirituality or the spiritual aspect. It's really a holistic look. And so that social emotional development is a big part of what we do. And so that kind of is the framework. And then within that, there's so much variety. So what you would expect in a Krishna conscious educational environment, or Krishna conscious school, where, you know, they have the opportunity to study Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam very deeply. Sanskrit is a very big element of what we do. And interestingly, when we got our IB authorization, one of the elements of IB is that you have your mother language. So that's language literature, and then the other subject is language acquisition. And for traditionally, schools will do, you know, Spanish or Chinese or another language, or French as a more traditional language to acquire. In our particular instance, we got authorized with Sanskrit being that second language.
Oh, wow.
And Jai Radhe, who is an exceptional Sanskrit scholar herself, and she just has deep enthusiasm for Sanskrit, it does an incredible job just bringing that forth with our students. And so that's definitely very unique. That's for sure. And then in terms of what just the overall experience that students have, being able to as part of just a daily routine, have kirtan, take care of the deities, really look into what's going on in the world, but with a spiritual perspective. That's a very unique aspect of what we offer.
Right.
And I just wanted to speak as well that starting with the youngest, character qualities also is a big part of our developing character qualities throughout the school. But understanding the social emotional context, how to resolve conflicts, how to communicate effectively, how to care for one another, how to live in community. And you would be actually really amazed to see how young these children are who are able to develop these beautiful qualities of being in community with each other. And it all starts from there. So they become really positively equipped to navigate their relationships. And I feel that's the heart of Bhakti Yoga and the personalism. So that's strongly in there as well. Just wanted to.
No, that's a great point.
That's great.
You know, my son that just came to say hi, Rajarshi, he's going to be 3 in April. And I remember since I was newly pregnant with him, I've been asked by devotees in Alachua when we're moving to Alachua so that he can go to the school. And hearing everything you're saying, I mean, I've heard so much, but hearing specifically from you is also, it's a great sales pitch. And I'm just wondering, what is the attendance like? How many students do you have? And do you have a waiting list actually of parents from around the country that want to come and move to Alachua for Bhaktivedanta Academy?
We have about 100 children this year, and that's been holding strong for the past number of years, right? And we continue to be at capacity, which is a good problem to have as a business, I suppose. And at the same time, our eye is always on the future. Development is very important. Would you like to speak with that and about?
Well, sure. And just to answer the question in terms of the specifics of wait lists like that, yes, we do. And we certainly have families that are joining us every year from different parts of the country and sometimes even the world, which is amazing actually. The word gets out. They have friends who come here, they have kids here, and then they tell their friends and they come here, and just kind of keeps building on that. And to us, that's just a testament that we feel like we're doing an okay job if families keep recommending us and their friends keep coming. So that's nice to have that. And yes, as far as the school, we're developing, we're growing. I mean, we are at capacity now. Every year we can bring in some new students, but it tends to be limited. The one place where we always have room are for 3-year-olds. So your timing would be great. And then at the same time, we're working actively now, looking at what is the future of Bhaktivedanta Academy. What does that future expansion look like? And because we want to be able to serve more families, but it's definitely going to be a major project in terms of this next development for us.
Yeah. This must be an extremely demanding job for you guys. Tell us a little bit about how things need to be managed in this service and how you share those responsibilities with your team and as a couple.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that anybody in education would feel that way. It's because it's such an important service that to have the well-being and the care and the education of so many beautiful children and their families, it's a big job of service. And so it calls upon us to every day bring our best. I was saying, I think one of my teacher trainers told it to me, is like, you bring your best self to school. It's kind of like you bring your best self to work, you bring your best self to school. So each day resetting to just be there for the kids. And so that's one part of it, is showing up every day with that renewed energy and commitment, dedication to our best. And there's so much that goes into that. There's the environmental part of it in a Montessori. I don't know if you've ever been to a Montessori school. It's aesthetically really beautiful. and it's very purposeful. So each class is geared to serve a different age group, and the classes are formed by shared developmental age groups. So for example, in the primary class, it serves kids ages 3 to 6 because they all share a similar developmental stage points. And so everything in the environment is geared for them. Everything is child size. There's plants, there's fish, there's beauty. It's created very orderly because young children are going through a developmental phase where they're benefited from having that structure and organization in the environment. And so we're really meeting them where they are. But to create that, it takes renewed efforts, changing the curriculum, planning the curriculum. That's one part of it, is that high level of teacher maintenance, making beautiful materials, using natural materials as much as possible. And also just planning the different curriculum units. There's a lot of collaboration. We have an amazing group of teachers who really all work so hard to always be a step ahead. Like not even just a step ahead, you're like 5 steps ahead, planning for what's coming next. There's lots of meetings going on behind the scenes. So it's like a big organizational force.
Right. So it sounds like you have a really good team that you've put together over the years, and that's kind of how you manage all the different responsibilities.
Exactly. And working to try to facilitate people to bring what their passions and their interests and their skills and talents are is a really winning formula, because if we love it, then that is shared with who we're sharing it with, that enthusiasm and excitement and joy. So for example, in my class, when we have a new person on the team, like, okay, what are your interests? Okay, are you musical? Are you artistic? What is it? Let's all work together and share those responsibilities as much as possible.
Yeah,
and
I really understand this holistic concept that you're saying, but by how you're describing the classrooms and all that, it makes sense. Sorry, go ahead, Visvambara.
And I would just also add to this that a big element is, like Vrinda was saying, just bringing your best self. But teaching is a very giving profession. You're constantly giving. And so the importance, and in Montessori, we talked about the concept of the preparation of the teacher. And one of the reasons, going back a little bit in the history of the school, why we chose to align with the Montessori methodology is that Montessori very much has an aspect of spirituality built into it. And for us, it was just perfect because we're in Krishna consciousness into that. And so within Montessori, we're talking about preparation of the teacher. They also talk about the spiritual preparation of the teacher and the importance of it. And for us, just as you know, being engaged in this type of responsibility, it's families are making a huge commitment to us. They're putting their faith in us that we're going to take care of their most precious resource.
Right.
And we have to be able to fulfill that responsibility.
Yeah.
And I would say the one thing that I'm most proud of actually is in the development of Bhaktivedanta Academy, of how many parents within our community who had schooling experiences within Iskcon that were actually not that positive have now put their faith in us with their children, that we will provide something different than what they experienced. And we take that responsibility really seriously. And so for us, the beyond everything, spirituality isn't forced. It has to come naturally. But we create an environment by which it's fun, it's interesting, it's something that somebody wants to do. And then the teachers themselves are actually qualified to do the work that they're doing, and they're doing the necessary personal work and personal preparation to be able to day in and day out to do this important service.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for elaborating on how you guys, how the vision is put together and how you implement it. Now, like Amrita Kelly mentioned in the beginning, we're starting with Bhaktivedanta Academy, but we're going to narrow this down more and more towards the two of you.
One more point about what he was talking about, though. is the point about the caring for the caregivers, that our responsibility to care for ourselves and fill ourselves up spiritually, take the time for other areas of our lives that we are refreshed and renewed and ready to be givers. Is this guy right here does a really good job of taking care of the staff, and he recognizes that, and he really holds that space, and he fills up the cup of the teachers and facilitating and providing for all of the staff. Really cares. Really nice for us. So just giving him props for that.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to comment on that though, I do have to say, like, one of the things that was really interesting to me when I first got involved with the school way back when was just kind of this idea that as devotees, we're expected to make very major commitments to whatever it is that we're doing. And at the same time, there wasn't a lot of emphasis on taking care of people's personal needs in order to do that. And to me, that never made sense to me, because we're asking a lot. And to the credit of many devotees, I mean, day in, day out, year over year, they've made those sacrifices, they've done those things without any expectation of anything. And at the same time, I don't think it's incorrect to acknowledge that people have personal needs. They have to be able to take care of themselves. They have to be able to take care of their families. And if they can't do that, how are they going to really be able to really commit themselves to this other thing? And so for me, that's always just been an emphasis of what we've wanted to develop at Bhaktivedanta Academy, and taking care of everyone who is actually making that commitment.
This seems so integral to that vision, that the devotees who are taking care of the children feel spiritually, and they feel spiritually nourished and nourished by their community, in that sense that they're healthy, and then they can impart health onto the children. Because if we're depleted, then how can we be an example? We want to be whole, we want to be healthy and happy. But if we're coming from a place of feeling burned out, how can we do that naturally? Then it's kind of artificial. So it sounds like sort of the key to the success of such a truly vibrant program, right there.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of a concept that's held up pretty high at the company I work for, which is that we're catering to the external customers as well as the internal customers equally. And the internal customers are your employees. So that's it makes sense.
Nice.
No,
nice.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, we can create a healthy way. I was going to say, we can create a healthier way of being, for our children, for ourselves, our community of devotees to go forward.
Yeah.
I would like to ask, what is it like to have a career inside of Iskcon, essentially? And what does that look like for you too as a couple? Do you have to compartmentalize in a way, sort of your that was a telling look, I don't know. Do you have to compartmentalize your roles at school and at home? And are there challenges with that?
Yes, and yes. No, it is true. It is true. It has been, so your first question was, what's it like having a career inside Iskcon? Did you want to answer that first?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is like with anything else, there have been challenges, and then there also have been blessings, and often challenges are the precursor to the blessings. It's an opportunity. I think at first, just looking at the history of our school, we had to prove ourselves a little bit, because this was a new paradigm to have as a Krishna conscious school with a different, like a clear methodology. We utilize the Montessori methodology, and people didn't give us their trust in that right away. We had to prove that actually it was a successful marrying of using this way. And so that is there. That lost my train of thought here.
Well,
Career inside of Iskcon.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and so within Iskcon, again, it's a blessing, and it's also has its challenges. But really, the thing that we look at, and at least the way I it a little bit, is it's been a wonderful opportunity, no matter what maybe the external challenges might be. Sometimes, sometimes there's. Early on, it was harder than it is now, I would say. Again, just as we've developed over time, as we've gotten better at what we do, and not to say we're perfect. We're definitely not perfect. We make mistakes, we evaluate. But the thing is it's iterative. We're always evaluating. We're looking, okay, where could we be better? We're trying to be better. And so at this stage now, I feel like we have that trust to a great extent. And I have to say that within our community, we definitely have the support of this community for what we do, and it wasn't always like that. And I have to say that Mother Mukia has been a huge cheerleader of what we're doing, and has provided a tremendous amounts of cooperation support from the temple side to allow us to do what we do. And that's rare, actually. It's not common. And so she really is someone who has really created an environment by which Bhaktivedanta Academy could flourish and grow within the context of being, an Iskcon affiliated institution.
Yeah, I always
And
really
you can
enjoyed
imagine the
seeing.
blessings are endless that we get.
Go ahead, Vrinda.
Sorry, the delay. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was saying that the blessings, as you can imagine, are endless. How lucky are we that we get to go to school every day, get to go to work every day, and be with these beautiful children and families. And each class has their own set of deities that we get to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission and community members in this way. And for personally having these little kids, these little Vaishnavas, they're so special. They're just so special to be able to be with them and to share Krishna with them and just share relationship with them. It's all about the relationship. And I just feel like, I know you have children, love your kids. You just love them so much. I feel that way about the kids that I get to be with. They call me mother, and I just fit. And sometimes they'll say like mom or mommy, and I'm like, I just love it. So it really is a blessing.
That's really, really sweet.
Yeah. And a teacher that teaches older kids once asked me, like last year, is it hard for you? So young, they might not remember you. And at first I thought about it. I'm like, no, it's not, because it's, first of all, so rewarding exchanges, to be the honor to be a part of these kids' lives and their family lives. And they're just so special. They're developing, and everything they're going through is going to be a part of who they are later in life. And whether or not they specifically remember myself or the other teachers, they're going to remember how they felt. And hopefully they feel safe, and they feel happy, and they feel shelter. And that's what's going to bring them around and give them, what does Krishna consciousness mean to me? It means feeling loved and cared for and fun. They have so much fun. They're so joyful. Yeah. So that's and I get to serve my spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada's mission.
And I would say, I think that's, and again, that's the positive of it. And I think you want to know what's the other side of it too. And I can say that at least personally, the challenge side of it, or the thing that does make it challenging, is we're in a very tight knit community. There's no anonymity here. And whereas, you're doing a job somewhere else, and you go, you do that, you come home, there's no real interconnection there. So there is a certain separation, which I think is, at least in my mind, I think is nice, because you can then kind of set that aside, and you can just kind of live this other life that separate from quote unquote work. In this particular case, you don't really get to do that a whole lot. And sometimes, at least for me, it's been hard to necessarily always be my authentic self because I feel like I'm always on. And
Yeah.
so one of the challenges that we face, you know, in terms of myself, our other Vrinda, our other teachers, is, you know, say you go to the temple, you want to go there as just a devotee in New Raman Reti, just going to the temple to participate in whatever's going on, and you don't want to necessarily go there as Visvambara, hey, the head of school, in that way.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily get to choose that.
Right.
And so that's one thing that can be a challenge in this, is that kind of you're always on, in a sense, within that context.
Right.
Which kind of brings us to your next question, is navigating the roles interpersonally. I always make the joke that he's the boss at work and I'm the boss at home.
That's no joke, Vrinda.
It has been tricky. I mean, we've had years now of learning how ins and outs, what works, what doesn't work. And honestly, I think what you mentioned about compartmentalizing, just we get to talk and communicate and always make sure we're having good communication about it, and being clear about when we want to have space for work time and when we want to have space for not work time, because sometimes it can become like all encroaching. And being clear about when I'm talking, say, to him as my husband and just wanting to bend or unload or need support, as opposed to talking to him and he has his boss hat on, his director hat on, and he's wanting to solve problems. So we get clear about what's the dynamic is going on and what roles we're playing. And we do have a code word if one of us is talking too much about work. And the other
What's
one
the code word?
Code. Home time. Home time.
Home time.
It's a nice benign code word.
Yeah. So Visvambara, next time you go to the temple, you can just say temple time.
Frankly, I think I've gotten better over the years of being a little more clear with that, even amongst friends. Because of the tightness of the community, I have friends that have children in our school, and I serve two roles. One is the head of school at Bhaktivedanta Academy and friend in other contexts. And sometimes those lines blur a little bit, and I have to just be clear that I'm not here in that capacity. Right.
I think it's clarity and setting personal boundaries, and that's been a work in progress, but I feel clear about that myself as well. I'd love to schedule a time to talk to you about your child's blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Send me an email, we'll make a time. And I think it's being clear about professionalism and taking a stand for professionalism. And you know, Iskcon is a society with people from lots of different backgrounds and cultures and cultural norms. And so, as he mentioned, that we've gotten clear about professionalism and growing that professionalism and standing strong in that, then it's been easier to have those boundaries. And
I'm just reflecting on the rarity of this type of relationship. Actually, I mean, maybe in the earlier days of Iskcon, this was more common, but you're both working inside of Iskcon and you work together essentially at the same school, right? So the amount of time that you spend together, the realizations that you have, everything is so interconnected. Your whole life together is so interconnected. And I don't see that as very common. Quite amazing.
Yeah. So we want to just acknowledge the fact that you must have had a huge workload and strategizing to have to undertake when the COVID crisis happened. And it must have been a daunting task, an unexpected task. And this is a big topic and no one wants to dwell on COVID for too long, but perhaps you can just tell us a little something about what happened behind the scenes and the adjustments you've had to make, and how it may have affected you both personally to have to take on such a task.
Sure. Looking back, I mean, what was it? This is January of last year. There was maybe some inkling that something was happening, but had no idea that it would be this transformative in terms of everyday life. And so when we got towards the end of March and things really developed, we had to make that transition from being every day at school, seeing everyone physically, to a completely virtual program. Mm-hmm. And I can say that the team we had is remarkable, because we were able to very quickly make this transition, to make this switch, to provide some continuity at the spur of the moment, essentially, and to be able to shift into that, and for our families, my gosh, so much goes to them in terms of them stepping up to these new responsibilities of essentially having to support their children's education at home, and do all these things to make it happen. So it was really a collective effort, and it wouldn't have happened without just so many different people stepping up in big ways to make that transition. And and that's how we carried forth through the remainder of the school year. We went from the end of March into June. We did it. We had to just kind of reimagine everything. And so even you're talking about our graduation ceremony, it was a big question of whether we were going to be able to have a graduation ceremony. And we saw different models of different things that people were doing, and we were ultimately able to come up with a way to do an in-person graduation for every student, because we kind of have two separate graduation events. We have the events for students that are transitioning from one class to the next. And one thing we didn't get into a little bit, just to give some context, is that students spend 3 years in one particular class before they transition to the next one. So these are kind of bigger events. They're bigger steps for them, spending 3 years somewhere, and then saying bye to that place and those relationships, and now going on to another place where they're going to reestablish that. And so we have some event around that, and so we were able to do those. And then ultimately our big graduation event for our 10th grade graduates. So we were able to pull it off, and we're able to do it beautifully and do it in a way that still has some of that heart that we wanted to have in an in-person kind of setting. And then we went into the summer, and the one thing that I've told everyone through this, the one thing you know about COVID is that you don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Everything has been so you just can't predict. And so we had to be exceptionally flexible to whatever might be the way that we're going to do things. And so even going into the summer, are we going to have physical school again, or are we going to continue virtual education? What are the feelings of our families? Because you have families who want their kids physically in school, and you have other families who are very concerned. They have maybe particular health issues within or a child or other concerns, and they didn't necessarily feel comfortable having their children physically at school. And so we really had to go forth kind of figuring out how do we support the needs of everyone the best that we can, at the same time still maintain the integrity of an educational program that we're trying to provide. And so we went forward with that step by step, and really, like, by Krishna's grace, we're able to pull everything together that we needed to do. But it was a lot. I think it was only, I'd say just it was probably several months into the school year where I finally felt like, okay, hey, we're operating very differently than we typically do, but we're operating, we all kind of know, we do know what we're doing, what needs to happen, and it kind of settled into more normalcy. But I'd say between March and October, it's been a pretty intensive endeavor, and it wouldn't have been possible without everyone's full commitment amongst our teachers, amongst our parents, and amongst some others that really were a backbone of support in terms of how we established our particular protocols, how to operate, looking at a lot of different things that way. It just wouldn't have been possible without them.
Well, thank you on behalf of the whole community and the parents and the students for setting all that up. You did a wonderful job, I'm sure. We're doing the best we can in very unusual circumstances.
The Bhaktivedanta Academy is a glorious undertaking. And we are so grateful for it. I know the community is so grateful for it, and so are your students. So as our Nectar Talks halftime show, we have a little treat for you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, my name is Sina. I studied at the Bhaktivedanta Academy my whole life, and I can honestly say that if not for the Gurukul, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wanted to thank Visvambara Prabhu and Mother Vrinda for all of their service. My favorite thing about Visvambara Prabhu is that no matter how busy he is, he always takes time to connect with the students and really have a meaningful relationship with each student. My favorite thing about Mother Vrinda is that she's always so sweet and loving, and you can truly see all of the love that each student has for her. So thank you, Visvambara Prabhu and Mother Vrinda, for all of the service that you guys have done and all of the service that you have provided for our community. We truly love you so much, and I don't know where I would be without you. Thank you.
Honorable, I just wanted to say that Visvambara Prabhu and Mother Vrinda, they're very inspirational and they're doing an amazing job at Bhaktivedanta Academy.
We just wanted to thank them for everything they've done for us and really inspiring us over the years.
Visvambara Prabhu and Mother Vrinda are two of the most kind-hearted and dedicated devotees, and they work so hard to create a wonderful learning environment for all the students there. I'm very fortunate to have attended the school and to see it firsthand how they try to create such a personal relationship with all the students.
Those could go on and on all night.
You're gonna make us cry.
You're gonna make us cry too.
Well,
I'm so excited. We are graduates. Love all those guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Proof is in the pudding.
That's right.
I hope you didn't have to pay them too much to do that.
We paid them in pudding.
All right, so we're going to switch gears here a little bit.
Okay,
Thank you
ready?
so much for.
You ready?
Thank you for sharing all that about the Bhaktivedanta Academy and your wonderful careers that you have taken on behalf of not only the Krishna consciousness movement, but as a service to this community and fulfilling that need that you saw. It's really so admirable. But Visvambara, I'm going to put you in the hot seat here.
Uh-oh.
We're grateful that you could accommodate us on a Wednesday night show, which is our scheduled time, first Wednesday of every month. But we normally start at 7 o'clock, and we had to make an adjustment here to start at 8 o'clock. Can you tell us what that's all about?
Okay, so in terms of the schedule change, well, I appreciate you accommodating us. When you asked us to do this, that was the one hiccup, because
you accommodated us, really.
In addition to being head of school, I also do strength training. So I co-train in my gym here that we've set up here at home, and so I kind of have a pretty regular schedule of clients that I see multiple times a week, and so my schedule usually goes till about 8 o'clock. So.
That's amazing. You have that entire gym set up in your house. We did our homework.
Newly expanded.
Well, really, Madhuri Leela did the homework. So tell us more. How did this come about? When did you get into strength training, and what was the impetus for that?
Turning 40, I think, is always a good time to reflect and figure out where we're headed in the next phase of life. And one thing that really struck me, and this was said to me many years ago by Advaita Charya Prabhu. And I don't know why he said it, but he just took me aside one day and just said the one thing that he wanted to just kind of impart upon me is always take care of your physical self. Like, and he said it with such like conviction and like importance that it kind of stuck in there. Like I was like, okay, all right. And I didn't act on it right away, but when I got into my 40s, I definitely knew that there's a certain level of importance of taking care of ourselves physically so that we can continue to do whatever it is that we're meant to do going forward into our older second half of life is the way that I can say it. And so I took up strength training just personally, just something that I enjoyed doing and something that I wanted to develop further. And as I got more invested in that, I also felt the importance of it for others. And so I not only was developing myself, but also learning how to actually coach and establish people in strength training programs so that they themselves can have a better life going forward as well. And so over the last about 2.5 years or so, I've been developing myself as a coach, developing the facility in which to have people and that I work with and train, and be able to have that for others, because I truly feel it is one of the best ways in which anyone at any age can set themselves up for the future. And one of the things I tell my clients when they're coming in for their training sessions is they're making their investments in their physical bank account, their physical IRA in that sense. So because whatever we do now, our future selves will be thanking us in terms of how of being able to have mobility, not rely on other people to have to care for us when we're older. And a lot of it is based on strength development, and more and more research is coming out in that regard in terms of the importance of strength, and particularly for those of us that are now in this other half of life, and I'll put in a particular plug, particularly for women, when we look at issues of osteoporosis and things like that, the importance of continued strength development in terms of maintaining bone, and in some instances even regaining bone that has been lost, and then maintaining muscle throughout the later stage of life.
Okay, wow. Now, is there a waiting list for this as well?
It depends. At different times there are, because my time is limited. So I can only work with a certain number of clients at a time. And it's a 2-3 day a week type of investment for people. And so depending on how my schedule fills out, it varies. At the moment, I could probably have about one more client right now.
Okay. Well, the word is out. Watch out.
It blows my mind when people have such intense career lives, and then additionally they have passions that they're very faithful to and excited to share also. It shows something about organization and time management that is a very teachable thing for me. Vrinda, I'm wondering if you could tell us something. Go ahead, Prabhu, please.
No, I was going to say that has been a challenge, but I've gotten better at balancing that out. And I have to say that for me personally, this is what sustains me as well. It's part of a regular practice for me that makes it possible for me to do the other thing as well.
Very cool. So Vrinda, do you pump iron also, or are there other hobbies that you pursue?
I do.
Yes.
I do. So not only is he my husband and my boss, he's my weight training coach. So
a lot of that.
Yeah, we've been navigating some bumps there, but we're getting through.
Most coaches that I connect with, or like they would never train their wives. They're just adamant they wouldn't do it, but somehow we're making it work.
He's very tolerant.
What,
So
are
what
there
else?
any?
Yeah, tell us something else. What do you like to
Tell
do?
us more about Vrinda outside of school.
Okay, let's see. I like to write poetry. I like to read. I like to spend time in nature. I like to exercise. And oh, there you go.
Mother Madhurya Leela is on it.
She was getting on that. Okay. Like an emo there. Next slide. And I'm also passionate about personal growth, and I think that's one of my favorite things about working with kids is understanding them and the relationship and helping them grow from where they are and understanding how they work and what they need. And so for myself as well, I am enthusiastic to personally grow, and I feel that's a foundation of spiritual growth and development. And so that's one thing. And then also I see my years working with kids is that I can have a certain success and efficacy working with children. And I see it's not just with children, it's with the families and the parents. And families and parents are often an underserved area. I think in our society, we're not used to getting help for things. And it's kind of an unnatural way of being in this insular. You just have your family, maybe you don't have extended family around. And in traditional cultures, it wasn't like that. And it's hard. It's a struggle for people raising kids and navigating and figuring out what to do, what works, understanding your child and the different ages of development. You understand one thing and then now they're changing and now they're a teenager. It's like, what? So I also do personal and parent coaching as a practice on the side. Support individual couples or families in whatever way I can to help them navigate through challenges, personally, communication, find ways that work, understand their child, understand their development, and just be in service like that. I'm enthusiastic about that, and I feel it's a real area of service.
Yeah, that's really such a nice service. Now, are these usually parents from the school, or individuals, or do you see and coach people outside of the school, I guess, area?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Both sometimes. And also for the last couple of years, we have been facilitating a parenting course once yearly. We do like a 5-week parenting course, myself and one of the other teachers, Mother Setiki, and this year it's going to be virtual, so that'll be new for us, and families sign up and we get together once a week and we watch videos and we learn all about just different tools and navigational resources to be better equipped as families and understand our kids and get some community and support with it. It could be isolating, it could be hard. So that's something I'm excited to dive into as well this year.
I appreciate so much how both of you have kind of taken our society to the next level in some ways. You know, it started off with Srila Prabhupada and the first generation devotees who established the foundation with temples and worship and, you know, the practice of bhakti yoga. But this holistic approach, which to me is this recurrent theme here, whether we're talking about the students or how you envisioned the strategy for your school and how you're coaching individuals, you're really applying this holistic approach to the well-being of everyone around you. And I think that's such an important thing to have a full, healthy life in order to practice bhakti properly, because it's easy to get burnt out if we just focus on bhakti yoga, direct devotional service, and we're not looking out for our physical health, our mental health. And so I really appreciate that you guys are focusing on that. All right, what do we have next here? Let me look through my list of drills for you.
Okay, I have one.
Okay.
So we're now moving into your personal relationship, and we've
The
already heard.
couple.
Yeah. Yes. It's what's our keyword? Home time.
Oh,
Time.
home time. We want to know more about home time.
It's home time, baby. So Raman Reti was curious if you, and I'm asking on his behalf, of course, not mine, if there is any quirk about yourself that you know drives your partner crazy.
I'll go
Was
first.
someone laughing in the background?
Yeah, that's my wife. She's in the other room.
Sundari's ready to answer.
I'm saying going to say the quirk about me that annoys him and that
Right.
I work on, reining back. Is
Yes.
Oftentimes when I wake up in the morning, like my brain and my mind wake up and I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm ready to talk.
First thing in the morning.
Share my dreams and something yesterday. Yes. And he wakes up a little slower and doesn't want to talk right away. So I am aware of that, and so I work on acting that and not just diving into talking too much right in the morning. Am I correct? Am I sharing?
Well, we've worked on that.
Yeah,
I think over time, and it's yeah, I'm not always ready to go for first thing. So yeah, no, I've been, but I think the one thing that Vrinda's saying is one of the things I actually really appreciate about her is she is very much about analyzing and looking at how is it that things are going to be different or better, and so she's not content to just having the status quo. It's a continual development, and I appreciate that because it makes it so that we're just not staying stagnant in things, and we're willing to address things, we're willing to look at things, we're willing to even get into it a little bit on something, whereas my tendency is to kind of just I'll just let it be, but she really wants it to be evolved and developed, and so she drags me along with that.
Love how you did that, Visvambara. She's talking about something that she knows drives you crazy, and you just flipped it around.
That's a gentleman right there.
A true gentleman.
Yeah, I will tell you that it is hard, and we worked on that. But I also appreciate the other side of it, where she's coming from with it, and so that's that aspect of it. As far as what I do to drive her crazy,
yes.
I think
What's your
my
answer to
entire
that question?
existence drives her crazy. But no, simple stuff. I'm nearsighted, so I'm wearing my contacts right now. But if I don't have my glasses, I actually really can't see very well, and so oftentimes when I'm getting ready in the morning, I don't see certain things that I'm leaving around, and then she comes in and has to deal with, I just shaved and left everything, there. It's not because I didn't try to clean it. I actually really sincerely tried to clean it, but I just could not see it. So
that sounds so familiar to me for some reason. I think we share that problem.
Well, that's not a big deal, but thank you.
There's other things that
No, we can stick to the one answer.
Thank you. It is home time,
It is home time. Well, Visvambara kind of
that what he was saying.
Go ahead, Vrinda.
Go ahead. Don't worry about the delay.
What he was just saying previously about how that he appreciated that I'm wanting things to evolve. Thank you. And at the same time, I feel that that's true for you, that he's just like you see with his gym. He did all that himself, physically.
That's amazing.
Did all that work, and he's whatever he does, he doesn't do halfway. He does it all the way. And we decided the other day, actually, that he is the creator and I'm the maintainer. So maybe certain aspects, I'm like, okay, let's evolve in our relationship or whatever. But in other aspects, he's really good at leading and figuring out things that he wants to do or ways and going forward and getting resources, information. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, we need to fix the well and we need to do this and that and this and that. And just like the maintain, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. It's just like in a relationship, it's important to figure out as a couple, like what our strengths are and what we bring to the table. And even though we've been married 27 years, that was like a little, oh, you just are more the creator and I'm the maintainer in certain areas. So that was like a little realization.
Yeah, and to actually add on to that, the other thing I'll say, and we've been talking about this even more recently, is my tendency is to get pretty focused in what it is that I'm doing or what it is I'm trying to work on, and sometimes that comes at the expense of other things, and notably sometimes our relationship even. And the Vrinda really kind of holds that and is the person who oftentimes is reminding me, like, no, we need to give time to these other things. It's important. And whereas me, sometimes I get so focused on something, I just kind of keep going with it when it is necessary to step back and like sometimes set things aside and give attention and time to things that are also important.
Yeah, that's so nice that you guys really complement each other, and you're also able to recognize the different balancing aspects that you both bring to your relationship. So could you tell us about how the two of you met? We want to get down to the juicy stuff here. Tell us about the way beginning.
Okay. So, do you want me to talk? Okay. You're talking to me, right?
Yes, you go for it.
So we met in Laguna Beach in 1991, right?
91, 92.
90. I moved there in 1991. And I moved there from college, sight unseen, to the ashram in Laguna Beach, as even though I was fortunate enough to be born in a family of Vaishnavas, I chose on my own at the age of 18, 19 that I wanted to join the temple. And so I had a friend who I knew in college who moved to an ashram, and that was actually in Washington State. And so I'm like, okay, after this year ends, I'm going to go and move up there. But then one day she calls me and says, oh, I'm actually in Laguna Beach now. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to come there. And my parents helped me pack my stuff up. And I just had that decision that I was surrendering. Like in my naivety, I thought it was a one-off thing. You know, I'm going to surrender now. And my parents fully supported me. And we went down to Laguna Beach, and I moved into the ashram, and I felt like I came to the spiritual world. I don't know, whoever of you have been to Laguna Beach, it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. Yes. The Panchatattva deities are there. Badahari Prabhu and Kosha Rupa were the temple presidents there then, and it was such a sublime, supportive, nourishing, family-like environment and atmosphere. And it was a really intimate, small group of devotees serving, and Visvambara was there as well. And probably about like a year after, we were getting to know each other, and we just, you know, he was actually, like I said, how he doesn't do things halfway. I was an older woman. I'm 3 years older than you, 2 years older than you. So at that time, he was still a teenager. And
17 to be exact.
He was 17, I was 19, and he was like the head pujari.
Wow.
He looked pretty cute, and his
hello.
And his big South Indian tika, his big pujas with all the ghee lamps, and we just got to know each other and became friends. And that's
right.
really nice.
And
So
then
it was the Pujari outfit that did it.
Okay, I guess so. The big borders on the dhoties.
Big borders on the dhoties.
Those
all
big
the
borders.
kabucha. Yeah, it was like, that was the style. It was pretty
it'll
cool.
get them every time.
We're talking 80s dhoti look, or was it this in the 90s?
No, it's like South Indian, very pucka.
Very established in the 90s here.
Nice
Rita.
Yeah.
He doesn't wear dhotis much anymore, but
Very established. So then what happened?
Vaishnava couture through the years. Okay, so you met,
definitely.
and then tell us a little bit more about how the connection developed.
Well, it's, as you, I'm sure you know, and many people that are probably watching this know that there certainly has been a time, and whether that time is still prevalent, not, I'm not so sure. I don't think it's so as many more, but if it was always assumed if you're having a relationship with someone that you're getting married. It wasn't a question of like, hey, why don't you guys see if that's a compatible relationship with you guys, and down the road we'll get married. It was more like, when are you getting married? And so it was definitely a pretty serious relationship from the get-go, because that was the intention of what it was going to be about. And so
I remember I called my parents, because this was in Southern California, and I grew up mostly in Northern California, and I called my mom and said, guess what? I'm associating. They're like, what? I know my mom's watching this. She remembers.
Is she? Oh, that's great.
And I have to say, if Rupa Manjari is there we go. There's the big Sika.
Yeah, there's the Sika. That's what my eye went straight to.
I married a teenager.
Beautiful.
Teen wedding.
So
was this in Laguna Beach?
The testament to yeah, this is Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
Our wedding was in LA Times, so that was that. All these photos are actually LA Times photos.
Wow, this is actually
awesome.
such a beautiful photo.
But the one thing I have to say, if Rupa Manjari, Vrinda's mom, is watching this, I don't know how she was able to just accept that this teenager is going to marry my daughter, but she was exceptionally kind to me, and just extremely loving, and she's just a wonderful person, and now being on the other side with teenagers, with a son who is 17, I can't even imagine how that was even like possible. so I have to thank her for her faith in me at that stage of life to be able to marry Vrinda, and the rest is history from there. But it definitely was one of those situations where it's definitely pretty unique in terms of my age. But I tended to do a lot of things early in life, and so marriage was one of them as well.
It's so special that you became adults together. I mean, that's a big hurdle for any relationship, because we grow and we change over time. So to literally become adults together and to go through life in all of these different chapters says a lot about your relationship and who you are as individuals.
It says a lot to Vrinda's tolerance of me over the.
That's what I was alluding to. So you had mentioned, please.
I was just going to say that it's probably the first decade of our marriage. It was work. It was a lot of work, and marriage is like anything important and worthwhile is a lot of purposeful, intentional work. So I think anybody who's married knows that to be true, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And really, like with us too, when we look back on it, I mean, we had our first child pretty much right away. I was 19 when our first son was born by 2 days. I turned 20 a couple days later, but it was definitely like we went right into that.
Into it, yeah. So we definitely learned as we went along and grew together, and learned how to do that along the way, hitting the ground running.
Speaking of your children, can you tell us a little bit about them? You have 3 children. How old are all of they, and what are some of their qualities, and what are they doing?
Okay, so our oldest is Krishna Das, and he is 26, and he's a great guy, very compassionate, has a great sense of humor and loving, and he works. Shaka is 22. She's gonna be 22.
She's watching this. She's gonna be mad.
And she Tampa, and she's going to school, majoring in accounting. And Isha, our youngest, is 17, and he's actually going to be 18 next week. So I'm like, oh no, he's going to be an adult
18.
too.
You have 3 adult kids.
He's the last of our children in terms of not being legally adults. So.
And he's in Santa Fe dual enrollment program right now, and he's a very crafty guy. He makes all sorts of stuff, from baking to woodworking to all sorts of things. So I think I love, of course, I love all our kids, and think they're just amazing.
One of the things that I remember about because we had Krishna Das when we were really young, and he was, I mean, like I said, I was 19, almost 20 years old. You were 22, and here we are, pretty young, trying to figure stuff out. And he was our first child. He was the most wonderful baby in the world. I mean, in terms of his tolerance for things, he was so easygoing. He was and is a blessing in terms of just his nature. And one of the things that we really loved about being in Laguna Beach at that time when we had him is just, it was very much a family atmosphere there, and he had so many aunts and uncles throughout our small community. Was just had so much like affection showered on him from everyone, and so I really think back on that a little bit in terms of, he's the one that had to like tolerate all of our shortcomings as new parents and trying to figure things out. But he really endeared everyone, and it carries through now, and just he has a wonderful heart, and he really has a empathy for others, in a way that is really special.
Wow, it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Were they all did they all go through your school? All 3 of them?
Yes and no. So we moved here when Krishna was 5. So he was ready for kindergarten, and that's what motivated us to move.
Right.
One common thread in our life that Vrinda has an intuition of what it is that we need to do, and I'm typically resistant to whatever that intuition is. And so in this instance, she knew we had to move to Alachua. That was the place we had to be. And I was like, there is no way that I want to live in Florida in the humidity and all that kind of stuff. I grew up in Southern California. I was used to that, but Vrinda was insistent that was what we needed to do. And so we moved here. She never even saw the place. I'm the one that came out to convince myself that it was the move to make.
Now I'm realizing that that's a theme for me, like moving places but not ever going there. You better keep an eye on me.
So we moved here, and so Krishna Das, he wasn't necessarily formally part of Bhaktivedanta Academy. He was part of, at that time, was New Raman Reti school, but he had the great fortune of having Nautica Chandrika as his teacher for 6 years, from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And our school at that point didn't really go far beyond that, and so he moved on from there. Vishaka had a little more time with us. But again, it was still kind of in the early days of our school. But she was with us to 6th grade. Isha's the only one that actually was from 3 years old all the way through graduating, had a full experience at Bhaktivedanta Academy in terms of his educational background.
So it is hard to try and raise children, I think, for most of us, whether we're in Iskcon or we're just trying to lead spiritual lives, this sort of intersection between spiritual culture and time, place, and circumstance, modern reality, basically. And I'm wondering if our viewers have asked us to glean from the people we're interviewing advice. And so if you could give one piece of advice to our families who are raising children, who are struggling to find that balance or wherever they're at, what would it be based on having 3 now grown children? What would you tell them tonight?
Yeah. I'll go first. You go second on this one.
Seems like you have something to say. Go for it.
Something kind of came up. Is that ultimately you're not in control of the outcome, and to be okay with that. That is a surrender of a parent, that we infuse our children with all of our aspirations, what we want them to do, what we want to see. Some do it more than others, but oftentimes that is the case, and it's actually not our place to do that. They're their own people. They come to this world with their own karma, and they come with their own selves and their own experiences that are going to play out. As parents, we serve an important role, and at the same time, we are not going to protect them from everything. We're not going to be able to micromanage their life in such a way to where they never feel anything uncomfortable. It's just a natural function of life. That's what happens, and so to be okay with that as parents, that we will do our absolute best because we love our children. We're going to do whatever we can for them, and at the same time, we know that we're not in control of the outcome, and to be okay with that, and to be okay with letting them chart their path, or whatever that's going to be. And so, and I think sometimes as parents, we beat ourselves up a lot with like, oh, I wasn't so good at this or that, and we're all growing together. And yes, we're going to continue to try to be the best in that, but not to beat ourselves up too much in terms of that, because we're brought together for a reason.
Yeah, that's really great advice.
What about you, Vrinda?
Well, I really like what he said. That feels complete. The only thing I'd add to that is like to not be afraid to meet your own needs as parents in your endeavor to care for your kids. That sometimes parents can get lost in just the maintenance and the care for their kids and wanting to meet their kids' needs and forget about themselves. And it's hard to care for somebody else unless you're also getting your needs met. So don't lose yourself in your role as a parent, I think is very important. And also seek resources, seek like-minded people, seek community and friends, and find some mentors, find people who you resonate with, that you really like how they do that whole parenting and family thing, and get to know them. I think we all have so much to share. Is seek support from your community. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much, but want to take a stand for parents, because I feel like parents are so giving, and they really give so much to their kids, and sometimes it's to the extent of their own well-being and health, and it can really be hard on individuals and on a marriage and so many things like that. And something else they may not see is that how they are being is a model for their kids. So it's like a paradox. You think you're giving, I love my kids so much, I'm just going to give everything into them and neglect my own needs. but this is the message and the model that the kids are getting, is that mom sacrifices everything for somebody else. And that's how I should be when I grow up. That's the unspoken message that's passed on, the generational legacy. And that's not one of health, actually. So in wanting to give so much out of love and neglecting yourself, it's actually not setting them up for success in a holistic way.
I love how you guys complement each other. Those two answers just covered the full the full question there so nicely. You're really a winning recipe for this school. So we have two more topics that we want to cover with you, and then we want to have enough time for a Q&A at the end. Could you share a little bit about those two topics? Are your upbringing, and then we want to get into your personal practice of Bhakti Yoga. But could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your family cultures? I understand, Vrinda, you were born in the movement, and Visvambara, you were not. Tell us a little bit about. You were not. So tell us a little bit about your family culture, how you grew up, and eventually how that might have influenced your approach to Krishna consciousness.
First?
Sure. Okay. So like you had mentioned, I was fortunate to be born into a family of devotees. And so my family, we were closely connected in temple service up until I was about 6 years old. When, I just have to mention this, when I was about 2.5, we lived in Hawaii. My family moved to Hawaii, and my father was the temple president there, and Srila Prabhupada came and he stayed there for a couple months, and I got to meet him when I was just a wee one. And I called and asked my authority, my mother, okay, tell me some more things that I don't remember, or things that I think I remember, or halfway remember. And she was just really sharing some sweet remembrances of, my mother and sister and I, we would make Srila Prabhupada cookies. And you know what an easy bake oven is?
Yes.
Like, with a little light bulb inside. Probably makes horrible cookies. It does. But so we used to make cookies for Srila Prabhupada in an easy bake oven.
Perfection. It's the perfection of that invention.
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And offer him flowers and offer him cookies. And I have an impression, like it's such a young age that I have these like memory impressions of feeling in awe and shy of him. He was this grand energy, but I relish hearing those stories and from my mother and knowing that was a part of my life.
Yeah, that's really
my
special.
Parents, when Srila Prabhupada left the planet and things became a little rocky in the movement, my family then took on a more traditional lifestyle as far as like moved a little separate from the temple and had jobs. And then I actually went to public school. I call myself a public schoolie instead of a Gurukuli. And so
I like it.
But Krishna was there, and that was the foundation in what I knew. And I think what I take from that in relation to your question is my parents, they allowed me to be me and who I was, and to explore and to come to Krishna consciousness on my own. And I think that's really attributes to why I then, when I was in college, decided and claimed Krishna consciousness for my own and made that choice as an adult for my own and gave myself to it fully. Not something that I feel I took for granted, but was able to fully choose. And I feel that my parents were always and are always very supportive and just very loving, and just a lot of gratitude. A lot of gratitude.
Where did you go to college, Vrinda Prabhu, and did you have association there? Humboldt
State University in Northern California. Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. I had the whole classic existential angst kind of experience and crisis. Like I moved away to college, and there I'm like, okay, now I'm an adult on my own. I'm gonna see what life's all about. And so then of course started doing the things that to explore, partying and things like that. And just like suffering and being very unhappy with that experience. And lo and behold, there was a devotee that was having a little campus program, Bhakti Yoga program on the campus. And so I started reading and chanting, and just like, I remember just being really unhappy and really miserable, and taking a walk in Humboldt. There's beautiful redwood forests and right off the campus. And I would take shelter and take walks in there. And I was walking and thinking very clearly, I remember this, like, why am I suffering? And I just had this like flash of realization that, oh, it's very clear. I'm being offered two ways of living, the material path or the spiritual path. And this path is equaling really suffering. This path is giving me shelter and happiness. I'm going to choose this. And that was it. That was it. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And so, like I said, I even remembered that I gave away a lot of my things. I had this big record collection. I'm like, I'm surrendering. I'm giving away a lot of my material things.
Wait, just tell me a couple of those bands that were in the record collection. I can't let that one slide.
You want me to tell you the bands that I know you'll like?
Yeah.
I don't know, the Dead Kennedys, the Clash.
My kind of girl. No, but it's such a classic realization that, I mean, I went through the exact same realization and kind of going through college. And so, yeah, I find that very relatable. And thanks for sharing that, that honest account of how you kind of came back to Krishna consciousness on your own.
Yeah.
How about you, Visvambara?
But I really feel like I jumped and Krishna caught me, that I made that leap of faith, and Krishna gave me such a beautiful, beautiful experience living in Laguna Beach with, like I said, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu and Mother Kosha. We were taken such nice care of. We lived in an ashram that overlooked, we even had an ocean view. It wasn't like a fancy ashram.
That really sounds like paradise.
Right?
Literally, right?
Bhaktivedanta Prabhu would give the ladies scripture classes, music classes. I don't think the men got those somehow. And they didn't get those.
No, I did. I got redundant.
Did you? Prabhu would give us vitamins and give us saris from the temple gift shop, and we were just so well taken care of. It was, like I said, I feel like I jumped and Krishna caught me. He just really gave me such shelter.
Beautiful. What's your family background, Visvambara, and how did that affect your Krishna consciousness today, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty typical American upbringing. I was born in California. When I was about 3, we moved to Texas. My father's from Mexico originally, so we moved back to El Paso, Texas, where most of his family was. And I grew up there for until I was about 10, and then moved back to California. At some point along the way, my parents had divorced, and so I lived with my mother for the majority of my life. And so we moved back to California at a certain stage. I think I was about 10 years old at that point, and to Southern California, to the Orange County area where my grandparents lived and where my mother grew up and all of that. And so kind of two very interesting places to grow up. El Paso, Texas is very different than near the beach in Orange County, California. And very different experiences. When I was with my dad, it was a very different experience than when I was with my mom. So it kind of had a very diverse kind of upbringing in that sense. And and continued on. We lived in Southern California, and then when I was about 13, my stepsister also lived with us, and her father had my mother had a relationship prior to marrying my dad. Kind of came back on the scene, and in the interim, he had come to Krishna consciousness. He met the devotees. He got initiated. It wasn't so much practicing so much at that point, but he started taking us to the temple in LA, and then we'd go to the temple in Laguna a little bit, and I just was drawn to that. I can't really explain like why, but it just felt natural. It just felt like this is the place I was supposed to be. So when I was 13, my mother and I moved to Laguna Beach, and we're right very near the temple there. And like Vrinda mentioned, at that time, Bhattacharya Prabhu had just become the temple president after many years of Agnidev being temple president in Laguna Beach. And it was just such a welcoming, warm atmosphere there. And it was just a perfect place to come into Krishna consciousness. And so, and one thing, one thing that I, again, talk about, like, now we have kids that are of age, which, you know, I was at a certain point. And I think about some of the things that I did at that particular age, and I just don't know how it even happened, but I was exceptionally stubborn. And at 13, my mother and I had moved there with the intention of being near the temple. I was going to continue to go to school, but then we could be near the temple like that. And I was going to have nothing of it. I wanted to move into the brahmacharya ashram. That's where I wanted to be. And I was determined to make that happen. And so the apartment that my mother and I had was actually in the same apartment complex where the temple had the brahmacharya ashram. And, you know, but, you know, 40-plus-year-old men just kind of living in this place. And I was determined I wanted to live with them in that place. And so my mother agreed, okay, well, you don't have to go to public school, but you at least can do homeschooling. I said, sure, whatever. We got the books, all that kind of stuff. I never touched them. I didn't do anything with them. And at one particular point, I tore them all up and threw them at the front of her apartment door.
I surrender.
I was horrible. And so I was living in the brahmacharya ashram. There was no other way around it. And so I was engaged full time in the temple. So I essentially dropped out of school in 8th grade. That's part of my background. And just fully committed myself, and nobody was going to keep me from doing it. So that's how I came to Krishna consciousness, and
that's
with
amazing.
my stubborn will. But my mother is a saint. She tolerated so much from me, and at the same time, she's the person that established the opportunity for me to meet Bhakti True Swami and to spend many years with him. And it's something that I'm eternally grateful to her for. It's an interesting story, and he used to actually like to tell the story a lot. Every time he kind of like would introduce me, he'd go back to tell the story. But he actually came. He visited Laguna Beach, and he was visiting some devotees who had just suffered kind of a personal tragedy in their own life, and he came to visit with them during that time. And they were friends with my mother, and had the opportunity to drive with him when they're taking him to LAX, to the airport. And in the course of that drive, he had made the offhand comment to her, like she just said, you know, is there anything that I can do for you, anything I can give to you? And he said, well, you can give me your son. And she said, yes. Maybe it was like, please take him. You can have him. No, but she.
But was
yes.
he joking? Was he joking when he said that, or was he maybe serious?
He was half joking. He was
very scriptural.
He was half joking. Yes, and interestingly enough, while he was there, he did tell that story of Lord Nityananda and how he left with the sannyasi and such. But my mother said agreed, and so kind of that set the wheels in motion. And several months later, I was on my way at that point I think I was 14, on my way to Europe to meet up with him, and I was able to spend on and off about 4 years of my life with him, as his traveling with him, as having all the adult responsibilities of caring for a sannyasi, and ultimately got initiated again. I did everything young. I got initiated when I was 14, and just continued to serve him on and off, and would come back to Laguna Beach from time to time. But really that kind of set a lot of things in motion for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, here's some pictures of the two of you. It's beautiful. So you were 14 there when you got in. Is this your initiation photo right there?
That's initiation, yeah, in Vrindavan.
Yeah, I think we have one of Vrinda as well. When did you get initiated, Vrinda?
In 1994 in Laguna Beach.
Okay.
Wow.
There it is.
And there's Badahari Prabhu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. The loss of Bhakti Charu Swami this past year for the whole Iskcon society was such it was horrible for everybody. And thank you so much for bringing him up with us tonight. And I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to share with us about your time with him, a memory or anything that you'd like to share with us tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very hard, monumental loss for all of us and us as his disciples, and it's something we're still processing and coming to terms with. So it is difficult for a while. I wasn't able to listen to like his lectures or hear him speak. In the month of Kartik, I would listen to a recording of him chanting the Brahma Samhita every day, and somehow that felt like a lot of solace for me. So it's something I feel fortunate to have received a lot of support from some of his God brothers and God sisters, and Sesha Prabhu and Manamati in particular gave me some nice advice and service and separation, and it's a big topic that I am still coming to terms with. But so I know it's the relationship shifts. The love is there, but there's a lot of pain with that love, of course, still. Yeah. But he was such a kind and gentle spiritual master. We had the honor of hosting him many times in our home when we lived both in California and here in Alachua. We were fortunate he would come and stay at our home, and I love that picture. Him holding our kids there.
That's
and
wonderful.
He was just his personal example. It was just something that I'm going to continue to strive to repay my debt of gratitude to him, and to so much there. I'm a little bit at a loss for words, so maybe you'd like to say something.
Sure. Yeah, I think with me, it's definitely my relationship with Bhakti Maharaj was unique in the sense that he essentially raised me for several years, like those pivotal years of my life. And so much of who I am, I can directly attribute to his example and my time with him. And so I gained so much out of that it's just something you can never repay, in the sense of what he meant to me in terms of what he allowed me to do, and ultimately kind of who I became as an adult. It definitely is a significant loss, but at the same time, you know, the things that I carry with me in terms of his legacy and I've said this a few times, and I know people may be tired of hearing me say it, but I do truly feel that he left a particular legacy, and that legacy is now responsibility to carry forward. And one of the primary I observed, and one of the things that I see as a disciple as a responsibility is how he truly cared for other people. It wasn't just he was the spiritual master, and he's checking in on how you're doing spiritually. He truly cared about how you're doing altogether, and in so many instances made all these arrangements and care for people. When I was with him, I mean, so many different instances of just making sure I had enough to eat, making sure I had a good place to be, that I was taken care of. And to be frank, he was very demanding in terms of the standard was very high. Being in personal association with him, you're close to the fire there in terms of that expectation. And conversely, he just cared so much for me. I felt that love from him that it just, I would do anything for him. And so that's one legacy that I feel that he's really left, is the importance of taking care of each other, and truly taking care of each other, not just in a superficial way.
Yeah.
So that's just something that really sits with me in terms of responsibility to carry forth, in terms of what he would expect.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your personal relationship with him. And yes, he will remain in the hearts of so many devotees in our movement, and we miss him dearly. So we're getting close to the end here, but I'd like to wrap it up with one last question, which is my favorite question to ask devotees. Why do you practice Krishna consciousness today, and what keeps you in it?
Why I practice Krishna consciousness today is love and gratitude. I've been the recipient of so much kindness and mercy and care from others. I have a debt to pay that gift forward to others with love.
Wonderful. Thank you. How about you, Visvambara?
It's interesting, when in preparation for our interview with you guys, we listened to the interview you did with Sesha Prabhu and Mother Manamati, and when he gave his answer, it really struck me, because I actually feel very similarly. It is duty. It's a sense of responsibility. It's a sense of duty to show Prabhupada's movement. My nature is a doer. And so that's always been kind of what my engagement in Krishna consciousness has been, even from the very beginning. You know, I just loved washing pots in the kitchen. Like, that was just something I loved to do. It was like, I don't know why. I would never do it at home, but I would love to do it in the temple. And so in so many different ways, that's just my person. That's my nature. My nature is to do. And so really, like, my connection to Krishna consciousness, my connection to Srila Prabhupada's movement, is to try to just do something of worth, and so that's what keeps me connected. And frankly, I have to say that my relationships are what keep me in Krishna consciousness. I'm not. I couldn't sit here and tell you that I relish all these high spiritual things. It's the relationships with others, and it's that sense of responsibility and duty to show Prabhupada's movement that keeps me connected.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful thing, because I've heard that a lot, actually, that there's a lot of devotees, they do this because of the relationships and the qualities that they've discovered in other devotees, and that's the number one attraction. And it's just a testament to Srila Prabhupada that he's trained all of us to want to be these beautiful people and to seek each other's association. So, well, thank you so much for this beautiful interview and for opening up to us and our viewers. Last I checked, there were about 25 people throughout the different platforms. I don't know if there are any questions that have been typed out, but now's the time. If anybody wants to share any comments or ask any questions, please feel free to go ahead.
Well, we're waiting for that. I just want to take an opportunity to thank you guys for what you're doing. And Namrita, what I know of you is you also don't do anything halfway. When you commit to something, do it in a big way, and so you don't take on commitments really lightly. And I think what you and Rita Kaylee are doing is just such a nice thing. And I just want to thank you guys for making the commitment to bring people closer together.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And
thank you.
You make it easy. We do see a few comments here from our wonderful tech team. Mother Madhurila says that she remembers teaching Krishna Das at the ALA. He was all the things you said, wonderful, respectful young man. And Vaishnavi also remembers Krishna Das as her student, said he was a very nice student. And
Thank you.
They say that you are an exemplary couple and you each other perfectly. No, thank you for those comments.
Thank you
for your kindness.
So before we go, do either of you have the burning desire for an arm wrestle?
Ooh.
Look, they froze.
Arm wrestle. I don't know how do we pull that off?
Where did that come from?
I'm just kidding. But as you know, it was in the works for our Truth or Dare section.
We were trying to work out a Truth or Dare.
Thank you all so much. This has just been...
There was one thing I actually, when we had talked a little bit before, when in the midst of our conversation, kind of the pre-interview for this, you had mentioned something, and it kind of brought something up for me that if it's okay with you, that I share.
Please.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned at some point, I think when we were talking, that you've had viewers kind of ask, like, if there was something to, I guess for the lack of a better term, a realization, although I'm not very realized at all, but something, a nugget to share with your audience, or for what it's worth. And it just kind of, something kind of came up, and I was, if it's okay with you, I can just share it for a minute.
Sure.
I think one of the things that for me, when I look at my time in Iskcon and look at what I've been able to be part of, the one thing that has always been there for me is that if you see a need, don't be afraid to try to fill it. And I often will hear people say, well, they're not going to allow me to do this, or nobody invited me to do this particular thing. And I guess I have to say, from that perspective, is that nobody's ever going to tell you not to do something. Like the way that the temples are, and there's shortages of manpower. If you come forward with an inspiration of something that you really want to take responsibility and do, nobody's going to stand in your way. It's one of the beauties of Iskcon being essentially a decentralized movement. Is we get a lot of leeway in things that we can do for Krishna, and I would just say that just one of the things that's been kind of a constant in my life is that even though I'm completely unqualified to do any of the things that I do, somehow or another, if the desire is there and the commitment is there, then Krishna kind of provides what's needed. And that's certainly been my experience over the years. And it's scary at times. It's hard at times. It's exceptionally hard at times. But if that commitment is there, then Krishna does truly provide what's necessary. And it's definitely an opportunity to develop faith, particularly when things are not going well. When you've taken on a particular responsibility to do something and you're trying to figure out how you're truly going to be able to pull it off, and you have a lot of people depending on you, it's definitely an opportunity to really get deep in terms of that intimate prayer relationship with Krishna and help out. And through, in my experience, that's just been some of the most intensive experiences for me spiritually, is when making a commitment to do something that you don't know whether it's actually going to work out or not.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that and for encouraging everybody out there to take on initiatives, and that we shouldn't be shy to do that. I agree 100%. All right. Well, Amrita, you want to wrap us up? Thank you so much, guys. This was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any announcements that we want to make? Please join us next month, the first Wednesday in February, for our illustrious interviewee, who we'll reveal later.
Yeah, if you keep an eye on the Facebook page, we will announce that shortly, who our next interview is going to be with.
It's been such a pleasure, Visvambara and Vrinda Prabhus. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody.
Haribo.